I believe we were Pasuk Yud Zayin, right?
Yes.
We didn't do Pasuk Yud Zayin. We just finished by discussing how is it possible that at the end of time, doesn't matter whether you're Chacham or you are a fool, intellectual, you're a fool at the end, everybody disappears and everybody is forgotten. Correct?
Yes.
Very good. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Aneti et ha'chayim. This led me to hate life. Okay? So now we're talking about what? We're talking about the that Shlomo Melech is having after his quest to understand where his tendency, where the animalistic needs take him, versus what he can accomplish through wisdom under the sun. Okay, through wisdom under the sun. And he states something that's extremely painful. Extremely painful. V'saneti et ha'chayim. I started hating life. Ki ra alay ha'ma'aseh. It's very hard for me to accept shena'asa tahat hashemesh, that the way you can do things under the sun, meaning behave so much and do so many things, right? However, under the sun, doesn't matter what you accomplish, doesn't matter what you can build, doesn't matter what you've done. At the end, it will just fade away and disappear. And this, meaning, Shlomo Melech comes and tells us that if you don't see perpetuality, if you don't see a good outcome of the fruit of your efforts, you're going to end up rejecting and hating. For why? Why do you have to hate?
Wait, Rob, you want to mute us all because there's a little bit of an echo. Maybe mute us all and then unmute maybe if there's a question.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Exact. Mute all. Okay. So, is that better now? Yeah? Okay. The question is, how can the reaction of Shlomo HaMelech be understood? Okay, you do a lot of things. There's no results. Why should you hate life? You should hate yourself, for not doing what you're supposed to. Why do you have to hate life? V'saneti hayim. Hold on, yeah. Okay, so that's going to be, yeah. I'm here.
Because there's no eternity to it. It doesn't last. It ends when you end.
Correct. So why hate life?
Because there's no profit in it, as he says. Because if it ends when you end, what good is it? Where does it go? It goes nowhere.
Oh, okay. But my question, okay, very good. That's logical. How does that translate into hate?
You hate it because you sweat and toil under the sun. And if it ends as if you could accomplish the heights of heights, and then it all goes poof and it turns.
Yeah, but you enjoyed. You enjoyed, you built. Okay.
What enjoyment has any lasting feeling? None.
None.
I can't even think of one. It ends when it ends.
None.
Happiness,
exactly.
Love, every emotion.
Everything. Every emotion.
It finishes when it finishes.
So if that's so factual and that's the reality, why hate life? That's the reality.
Because you can't take any of it. There's nothing that's not fleeting. None of it. Nothing. You amass in your hands, and then it slips through your fingers like sand, and it just can't grab onto.
Mm-hmm.
This has no cumulative value.
Everything you say, I agree. My question is, why does that legitimately result to hate?
Rob, because
it could be
you're not
resentment.
passing on. You're not passing on to the future generation.
But all this is great, and everybody says is true. But my question is, okay, how do you understand that the transition between this factuality of life and hate? I mean, it's if it's the life, it's life. What I mean, listen, do you hate yourself because you're only 5'8" and not 6'2" and not blonde with green eyes and the
No,
body of?
it goes back to his favorite word. It's futility. Futility will make you hate it.
Oh. Futility, very good, but not hate. No, now you said something else. Say futility will get you to hate.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to dive into this because it's very important to understand the thought process. Shlomo HaMelech wants us to understand what got him to where to
How
say
he
what
arrived
he said.
at hatred.
Exactly. I mean, I read it, I can imagine it, but I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why being so clear and factual should lead to hate. Okay, I can reason.
I do because I just experienced that feeling with my father's passing. What the question that haunted me: what matters in life?
Yes, but so now what? You hate life?
You could come to hate life. Yes.
Oh, you could, but you agree with me by saying this that it's the wrong thing.
Yes, because we believe that there's the more important chapter.
Right. But at the same time, your emotions and everything is steering you into the other direction.
Sure.
What do you mean?
Meaning at the same time, your emotions and life under the sun is steering you into the possibility of hating life, because you're saying, why is it you and not life? But you could just be upset. I'm trying to do everything that I could, but life is taking me here. But
yes,
it's really your emotions that's taking you there.
Yes. Bravo. Okay. So I want to bring up a concept. Okay.
One second before. Yes. Is the default position of humanity without emunah in the afterlife? The default position could be futility and hatred.
Yes. But we need to understand why. We need to understand if we understand why futility and the awareness of what futility really is, how this leads to hate, we can protect ourselves from hating. But if you don't understand it, you will be pushed like everybody's saying, you will be driven towards hate once you start becoming smart. And it gets back to a little bit what the Rambam said, that when a person is struck by the light of truth, he begs to leave this world. He doesn't want this world anymore. We addressed it before. Yeah, that all he wants is take me to Olam Haba. Until the Arizal came and said that's one level. But once you understand the potential Hashem gave you in this world, for the next world, you don't want to leave anymore. Correct? Okay. So
yes,
it's just fantastic. It's just amazing okay, the timing of things. Okay. So in the parasha that we just read, there is an obligation. There's a tzivui. Like the actions of the Egyptians where you lived with, you will not do. The Midrash in Torah Kohanim says the following. He says, where do we know that where do we know that the worst people, the worst nation in history was the Egyptians? Because the Torah says, Kema'aseh Eretz Mitzrayim. Okay? Like the actions of the Egyptians. Meaning that's the Torah found the worst. That's where you cannot not go.
More than Sodom?
The worst. Because the Sodomim, they used Midat Adin. The Egyptians, they used the filthiest and the lowest moral laws. In Sodom, they took the Midat Adin to a complete different level. So the Midrash says, how do we know that the worst people is the Egyptians? And how do we know it's because of Israel that they became like this? Asher yashavtem sham, where you lived. The Midrash says, if the Egyptians became so bad, it's because of us. Okay? Very, very hard to understand. So comes, I have to say, I don't know if you guys met, I know that Andy met my Rav Moshe Shapira, Zechet Tzadik Ukadosh Livracha. He was a giant. He was a giant. So I asked him this question, and I had a hidush I wanted to tell him. And Baruch Hashem Zachiti, I think it's one of the only things that I told him that he actually used and said in his shiurim.
The student taught the teacher?
Huh?
The student taught the teacher?
Chaz v'shalom. I didn't teach. I just...
One thing you could teach.
So, K'maaseret Mitzrayim is the following: when you are productive, when you are powerful, okay, and you are in a place or next to someone that's not at your level, the person will emulate. He's going to see how great you are. He's going to want to be great like you. But the problem is, he's not becoming great himself. He wants to emulate who you are. So he's going to try. Eventually, he's going to get tired because he's not successful. And then he's going to start, resenting. And then he's going to start destroying. If I cannot be you, then you cannot exist in my life. This is what the Midrash says. The Egyptians became so bad because of the Kedusha of Am Yisrael. They saw Am Yisrael, they wanted to say, oh, look at Am Yisrael, such a blessed people, such a powerful people. Look at the kids of Yaakov, let's be like them. Everything they touch is a blessing. They couldn't. They didn't have the right midot. They didn't understand the real values of Am Yisrael, but they tried. Eventually, they saw that they can't. So they started getting tired. They started resenting, and then they started destroying. And that's what led the Egyptians to kill the Am Yisrael. This is exactly the same concept. Why is Shlomo HaMelech hating? I hate life because of the impact actions have under the sun. What does that mean? That means that Shlomo HaMelech understands the difference between the action above the sun and the action under the sun. The action you do with your neshama versus the actions you do without your neshama. And he started rejecting and resenting a life that is under the sun. He started resenting these desires, these animalistic tendencies that are taking him away from the track. That's always shifting him aside. That's what he hates. And at that point, when you try, and you see you can't, you start hating it. You start hating it because you see that you cannot control it. Comes Shlomo HaMelech and tells us, if you think that you can just live by the laws of nature under the sun, it's wrong. Why? Everything is futility. You're running after the wind. You're never going to get anywhere. You're not getting anything. So instead of believing something's going to come out of it, recognize that it's only a tool. You understand? Good?
Like a stepping stone?
Not a stepping stone. It's a vehicle. It's just a tool for you to use in order to grow. But if you start living your life by these trends, you're going to end up fooling yourself, like he's been saying again and again. But let's get to the second pasuk.
1 second before you go there. Rob,
Yeah.
1 second before you go there. I learned this morning Pirkei Avot, and one of the concepts was that Hashem put us on this earth. It's the only thing that we can do to be a creator like Him. So kibud avaim, and our ability to be creators, to be like Hashem, in our own creators, is these mini microcosms of Hashem's midot. In kibud avaim, learning Torah, and all the things that Hashem commands us, is the purpose of this part of life, so that when the next part comes, you can only adopt the things that you've done that
Correct.
were like Hashem.
Correct. You know, it's interesting that's Musar I gave my son on Shabbat.
Wow.
I told him, I said, listen, it's very simple. You're going to go to Olam Haba, okay? Let's say you see people playing chess. If you don't understand chess and you're glued at a chair and you have to look at the game for eternity, you're going to get bored because you don't understand it, right? You get frustrated.
Because you didn't learn chess here.
Exactly. But if you know chess and you understand chess and the strategy of chess, it's going to be so amazing. You're going to be in awe from all the moves, from all the strategies. I told them, every Torah you learn here, you will enjoy it there. If not, you're going to be sitting, hearing things flying, you don't understand it, and you can't say anything. You cannot ask questions.
You'll be left out of it because the skills don't grow there, they grow here.
Exactly. So the pasuk. So let's continue this. The next pasuk because he's building from that hate. V'saneti ani et kol amali. Okay. So first, I hated the fact that life is like that, right? And then, saneti ani et kol amali shani amel tachat hashemesh. And I started hating all the efforts, all the time I've wasted building this world something that is futile. And you know what the worst part is, and what led me to hate, is not only the fact that I built futility. Is that I leave this to someone else. Everything I'm building in this world, I'm not taking it. I'm just leaving it. So somebody else is going to benefit from all the work I've done. All my toil is basically toiling so that a stranger comes and swipes it away from me. This is also if you look at the build-up, and one second, let's continue, and then we're going to go back. And who says that the person that will benefit from it will be a chacham? Maybe it's just
I guess
fool.
he was right.
Maybe he's a dummy, somebody that was just lucky to be at the right time at the right place, and he just gets everything from everything the person has lived for, has worked for all his life. And he's going to control everything that I've done. And not only what I amassed and all the wealth I built, but also all the wisdom I created to get there.
It disappears.
Ganze is not worse than disappearance. Worse than disappearance. If you have it and you own it and you disappear and it disappears with you, disappears. But if you do everything and it goes in the hands of the bad, of somebody dumb, it's even worse.
Opposite.
It's worse. You understand? It's not zero, it's minus. So comes Shlomo HaMelech and says, okay, I'm reflecting on everything. I have a tendency that I cannot control, or that I can control, okay? But if I don't control it, I see that it's just driving me crazy. Every time, if I want to build, I want to go in the right direction. Forget about the neshama, without the neshama. I want to go in the right direction, but it's always taking me in different places I don't want to be. So what happens? I start realizing that no matter what, my reactional life, my emotional life is just getting me nowhere. And there's nothing coming out of it. Not only that, that's enough to hate life. But not only that, you know what I hate the most? I hate the fact that all my wisdom, all my toil, all my sweat, all my energy, all the thousands and thousands of hours of thinking, strategizing, building, talking to builders, talking to architects, talking to banks, financing, this, that. At the end, there's a dummy that comes and it takes everything. Somebody that's not worth it. Bishlema, if it's somebody that's worth it, you build a legacy that we've been speaking from the beginning, then that hate leaves. You know why? Because you've been building in this world with your neshama. So yes, you leave something for later. But if not, the Midrash in Kohelet Rabbah says the following, that the students of Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes came to him, and his name is Meir. Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, he used to make 33 dinarim a week. 3 dinars, 3 coins of silver a week. 1 coin of silver he used to buy food. 1 coin of silver he used to pay for utilities, the heat, the house, clothing, shoes, whatever. 1 coin he fed the poor. Fed the poor. So his students came to him and say, Rabbeinu, the 3rd coin, don't you want to leave it to your kids? Build up the future of your kids. So Rabbi Meir said, Mimay nafshach. If my kids are tzaddikim, v'lo ra'iti tzaddik ne'ezav, I never saw a tzaddik left alone. Hashem will take care of them. Ve'im reshaim, and if they are reshaim, oy vavoy if I leave them something.
I definitely don't want to leave them anything.
Exactly. So why should I leave anything? If look at Rabbi Meir Ba'alanes perspective, if they are tzaddikim, who am I? I'm going to interfere in their bracha. Hashem will give them the utmost bracha.
Wow.
But and if they're not worthy, it's a shame. It's a disgrace with the bracha that Hashem gave
Rabbi
you.
Meir Ba'alanes didn't leave anything to his kids. If they're tzaddikim, Hashem's going to take care of them. And if they're reshaim, I definitely don't want to leave it to them.
Oh boy. Rob, don't give him any ideas, please.
You understand? No, but that's the midrash on this pasuk. That's the midrash on this pasuk. Say is that you have the problem is that you don't control the where all your work and toil is going,
Right.
and that in itself.
Rob, Stanley and I were talking yesterday about Shlomo's children. What was the actual historical legacy of what he left behind? In other words, he had this wisdom. He possessed this knowledge because obviously he toiled with it.
Yeah.
Did he do anything that lasted into his generation? What happened to his wealth? And what happened to all of his knowledge and wisdom? Did it go poof?
The only thing that is left from Shlomo HaMelech, unfortunately, is his writings and the first temple. Nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else.
So that's a big zechut. Was the first temple?
Definitely.
Does he get credit for all those mitzvot in Olam Haba that would that happened under the first mikdash? In other words, if he was a builder of the mikdash,
yes,
all the mitzvot, like if you build a shul today, supposedly all the tefillot and all that, some of that zechut goes to the builder.
Correct. But he was a king.
How about the chesed in the world? If you build, if you build a place for special needs children, does that zechut go to the neshama?
Yes. 100%. That's that again. Here it's a little different than being a king. When you're a king, you have a responsibility. Okay, and Hashem appointed him to build the Beit HaMikdash. As a person, as an individual, for example, we know that the Midrash tells us that when Shlomo built the temple, okay, what's left from the temple? What's left from the Beit HaMikdash?
The outer wall.
Yeah, who built it?
Who built it? Laborers.
So the Midrash says the following: that Shlomo HaMelech called everyone from the Jewish people and said, "Bring me all your wealth." Okay, so some brought gold, copper, silver, beautiful silk, and the poor people money, and the poor people had nothing. They had nothing. So they said, "We also want to do. We cannot give you anything financial, but we can give you our sweat. Let us build a wall." So they say, "Okay, no problem. Build the Kotel HaMa'aravi. Build the outdoor wall, which is not so nice. Okay, it's far. It's not so perfect because you guys are not, real craftsmen. But you build it. That's the only one that stood.
That's the only one that's left. Wow, it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, this is the only donation that was 100% pure, and this is what lasts.
Because they gave of their effort, of their sweat.
It was pure. It was pure. And that's a going back to what you're saying. We have to be very, very careful with the chesed that we do. Chesed is beautiful, But when the chesed fuels the emotion or fuels the ego, it's no longer chesed. You understand?
Only beseter is the purest.
Beseter, or if there is a name, then it's because you want to empower others you want to influence others to give. But it's very, you have to be very, very careful with the chesed. You know, a lot of people hide their emotions and their guilt behind chesed. And you're not going to hear this from other rabbis. I promise.
No.
The emet, the emet.
Yeah, it's common. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back. So here, Shlomo HaMelech built on the reason what led him to hate life. Meaning, he's telling us, be careful. If you only live your life by being reactional, emotional, you're gonna end up hating life, because you're never building something you want. You're always pushed and you know, from one side to another. You're not founded, anchored. You're not built. You're not focused. Number one, and number two, if this is the life you live, there's no continuation. You cannot look forward to something that's beautiful, that's enlightening, that's uplifting. Because no matter what you do, going back to what we said about Chacham Einav Berosho, if you have your eyes on your head, you're seeing far, so you can see the big picture. You can build, you can strategize, you can prepare. But if you're the fool is in the dark, meaning he's touching the floor to make sure that he can put one step forward. Yeah. So this is the life you're gonna live. You're gonna end up hating life. And then he says, okay, like we said, who says that who knows what, you know, if there is something to leave to the other after we're not here, who knows who's going to pick it up? So what does he do? So what's his reaction after this realization? I started fooling my heart to get to a place of yi'ush, to a place of the translation of yi'ush is you know, when yi'ush is when you don't believe in something anymore. You're for example, you lose something and you don't believe you're going to find it anymore, so you
give up on it.
You give up. It's like giving up. So
you relinquish.
Right. So he started fooling with his heart, playing with his heart, in order to give up. Give up al kol amal, on all the toiling, on all the efforts, on all the wealth that he amassed under the sun. Meaning he had to start teaching himself, okay, how to become fully independent
of the possessions. Did he have a change where he turned inward to spirituality only after a certain point?
No, but that's, yeah. So very good question. Stanley asked this question last year. This is a quest and a journey to understand life. It's not where he was. Okay.
So it's intellectual. It's intellectual.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, he wanted it. He had a journey in all these emotions and all these situations to understand how he reacts to life, and he'd be able to give a more, like we said, universal teaching and lesson to everyone. So he says, you have people that toil, and they focus on wisdom, on da'at, intellectual, intelligent kishron. They're shrewd, okay? ולאדם שלא עמל בו, יתננו חלקו, גם זה הבל ורעה רבה. So he says, you have people that actually invest their time and their effort in wisdom, okay? In Torah, in Chokhmah. And these people, their amal has a value. ולאדם שלא, כן? However, ולאדם שלא עמל בו, יתננו חלקו. The person that did not put the right effort to the wisdom, to the knowledge, to the ability to penetrate the world that is above the sun. גם זה הבל ורעה. At the end of the day, if you're not able to break through, even this is not worth it. So there is, if you will, a need to have a purpose and a direction in what you learn and intellectually, in the Torah that you learn, in the knowledge that you're gaining. Everything has to come back to a very holy purpose that allows you to break through the layer of what is called under the sun. The Rambam in the 8 chapters, in the beginning of the 6th perek, says that you can eat Leshem Shamayim, you can do business Leshem Shamayim, you can play sports Leshem Shamayim, you can exercise Leshem Shamayim, you can have intimate relationship Leshem Shamayim, right? If the purpose is clear in front of you, which is what? To be able to get closer to Hashem. How? By building your emet, by developing your acute sensitivity of differentiation between the emet and the sheker, or the emet and the good. So the more you build that, everything, so you sleep well, everything you do is in order to be able to be in harmony, to be able to get there.
So if you say that I take an hour of my day to exercise, but you could either direct the benefits of that to say, I want to look good for ego and all that, that's one side. The other way is I want to be healthy so that I can have a clear mind and a spiritual strength so that I sleep well, so I can learn better. And you put it all into, like you said, Shem Shamayim. You could take the same activity and direct it all for nothing or all for the ultimate purpose.
Exactly.
I wanted to tell you about tennis.
What
Yeah,
about
I
half
just
and
told you
half?
about that yesterday.
Yes.
No, about how it's a lesson. I was just telling my dad yesterday how, because of some of the things that we're learning, my view on playing tennis, which is something I love, really changed. And now it became all a practice of humility for me. How do I handle winning? How do I handle losing? Is it for my ego? Is it not for my ego? And how do I grapple with those emotions as I play?
It's the practical application of the character traits and the midot and all the things that you learn to refine your, right? Because isn't one of our missions on earth to take our worst midot and improve them?
Correct. That's everything.
That's everything.
Yes.
It's everything.
Right. So that would be an example of a mundane activity that you connect yourself to your neshama in order to be above the sun.
Yeah. The whole winter, until maybe a month and a half before Pesach, I was playing 3 times a week tennis.
No way.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not good like you. I'm just.
No, then we have to play.
Yes, and I took a teacher every morning from I think 8 to 9. I was at the court and playing. And I don't know who, a little boy from my neighborhood on Shabbat passes. He's like, "Hey, Rabbi, I hear you play tennis. You play good." I'm like, wow, like everybody. I'm at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not playing with anyone from the community. I'm playing for. But the reason I started playing tennis, going back to the tennis, was that when I was in Israel, I had some retention of water in my body. I went to do some tests, and I have my body's producing cholesterol that's not so good. Okay? So the doctor said, look, it's not bad. You don't need to take a medication, but you need to exercise. Since that point, I said, I need to find an exercise that's making my body, okay, healthy. And what I found that's the most appropriate for me, not too many people, and I can, it's my time, it was the tennis. And I started playing tennis in Israel and that. So if you do it for the right reason, Faddal, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Exactly.
Rob, I met you on a tennis court.
Yes, I know, by Michael.
That's right. That is the first time I met you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not there yet at all. But Andy is. Andy is a pro. So let's continue. So here Shlomo HaMelech basically tells us, see, I had to start pulling my heart to be able to realize that everything that I amassed is not worth it in order to start creating independence. Okay. Like we said, you have a person that builds his wealth, that builds himself with chokhmah, da'at, and everything that's intellectual. And everything that he's built, he's giving it over to somebody that did not toil. Okay, it's terrible. It's terrible. The wisdom that disappears and dissipates and evaporates is terrible. Which leads to the buildup of the legacy that is so important. We tend to focus on amassing, building, buying, building the wealth, building it, and then a company, whatever, so that eventually our kids can come, take over, and build. That was what Shlomo HaMelech spoke until now. In the pasuk we just read, he's talking about something else. He's not talking about the result. He's talking about all the resources, intellectual resources that came along in order to get to where you get, to what you're passing on. And he's saying, if that disappears, even though you pass on wealth, it's also heaven. And here comes something that, going back to Stanley, what you were asking, I think this is one of the Pesukim where we see Shlomo in pain, that he was not able to teach his son the wisdom that he and he's saying it's not enough to pass on the crown of a king to your son and making a king. Because if you give him the crown, but you didn't pass him the wisdom, the most important is lost. So focus on the wisdom, focus on the know-how.
Crown is the wisdom. The crown is nothing.
Yes, but that's what he's saying. Shlomo HaMelech is telling us, don't think that the fact that you don't pass on the know-how, you did a good job. No, that also is heaven. Make sure you pass on the value, you pass on the how to do, the know-how, the people, the strategy, the thought process. Because if you don't, the loss is there also.
Rob, is it true that in Shamayim, when you arrive and you're asked the question about your legacy, your children, and if they have good midot and they're Baalei Torah, there are no more questions?
The answer, no. Part of the question, there's a lot of questions that we ask for your name, but what we do, the benefit, if you have children that are had midot tovot, that are Baalei Torah or mitzvot, the benefit is that all the repercussions of their actions elevates you. So basically, you're in constant dynamic, right? Every time somebody says a Dvar Torah, says a make a mitzvah, puts a tefillin, it basically elevates you. You're never stationary. So your identity constantly change. So you're reevaluated every time. So you cannot be fully judged for anything you've done because you're constantly a different person. Good?
Okay.
The pasuk, כ"ב, כי מה הובל האדם בכל עמלו ברעיון ליבו שהוא עמל תחת השמש, right? So after we've understood and we've explained the big, the ורעה רבה, right? That he said in the earlier pasuk, ורעה רבה, the grave, very, very bad evil. Which is what? The loss of knowledge, the loss of wisdom that has been that disappeared from one generation to the other. Okay, by the way, it's the first time he uses this definition, Ra'a Rabba, in Kohelet. The first time he says this is the grave evil, the terrible, Ra'a, the worst. What is the worst? To pass on something and leave behind the wisdom. Okay? Then he says, if that's the case, so what does a man get for all the toiling and the worrying he does under the sun? You worry. All his life, mach'ovim, pain, headache, grief, ka'as inyano. He gets upset. Gam balayla, at night. Lo shachav libo, he doesn't sleep well. Thinking what's going to be with this, what's going to be with this, what's going to be with that, what's going to be with this. Everything. He's suffering all his life. Says, is this all this pain worth the outcome? Like again, let's not forget we're all talking about the efforts under the sun. So he's laying out everything. He's like, what are the benefits? You suffer. You build. You don't get anything at the end. You pass it on to someone that who knows if he's worth it. Okay, maybe he's an idiot. And everything that led to that build-up disappears. Nobody knows how you did it, how you didn't do it. There's no one to actually value the efforts. Nobody sees the nights that you stayed up, thinking, strategizing, who to call, who not to call, who to sell, who to buy, who to do it. Nothing. Gunish. Nobody sees all this. It completely evaporates. אין טוב באדם שיאכל ושתה והראה את נפשו טוב בעמלו. There's nothing worthwhile for a man that eats, that drinks, והראה את נפשו טוב בעמלו, and that seems to have enjoyed what he's accomplished, what he's amassed. גם זו ראיתי אני מiyad ha'elokim hi. I realized, even that I noted that comes from Hashem. Meaning, the benefits of your effort in itself is a present from God. Don't take for granted that because you toil, you will benefit from your efforts. The enjoyment of your efforts, this itself comes from God. You don't choose it. So, again, all these efforts, everything, why do you do all this? To be able to enjoy it. Comes from Amelech. You don't choose if you enjoy it or not. God chooses if you enjoy it. So that
so it's even more frustrating.
Exactly, more frustrating. He says, the Rasha, what does he think? He says, everything is for me. Who's going to eat if it's not me? Who's going to enjoy if it's not me? It's me. Everything is me. Me. כי לאדם שטוב לפניו נתן חוכמה ודעת ושמחה ולחוטא. So now he says, Hashem, how does he define who gets to enjoy his efforts and who not? He says, כי לאדם שטוב לפניו, the one that is good in the eyes of God, Natan chokhmah. He gave him the chokhmah. He gave him da'at, vesimcha, and happiness. And we spoke about the happiness, right? And chokhmah la Torah. The person that actually invests time, effort in understanding the Torah, seeing the Tov, he's the one who actually gets to the true simcha. And the one that mistaken, the one that the fool, the one that thinks that it's all about himself and that everything he does actually he controls and everything is built he will for sure enjoy. Now, this guy, ולחוטא נתן עניין לאסוף ולכנוס, לתת לטוב לפני האלוהים. גם זה הבל ורעות רוח. This one, Hashem makes him very busy all the time. Busy in business, busy to amass, busy to think that everything he's doing is so good. Yeah? But at the end, it's to put him in front of a reality that all his efforts were futile and a pursuit of win. Here Shlomo HaMelech basically summarizes and closes the second chapter by giving us a lesson. He's laid out in a very dramatic way, okay, the pain, the emotional pain that a person should face when he realizes that he wasted time, that he wasted so much resource and effort. And then he says, forget about all this, and you should know that if you believe you're controlling the outcome and the pleasures of your efforts, big mistake. Big mistake.
They amount to nothing.
Huh?
They amount to nothing.
No, but that's for sure. But he's not even talking right now what it amounts to. What about the actual emotional pleasure? Emotional pleasure.
Even the pleasure of it is in the control of Hashem.
Exactly. So he says, don't think don't think, I want to tell you a story. A story, Maaseh Shaya, it's crazy. There was when I was in Mir Yeshiva, there was my Rosh Yeshiva, Rab Nathan Tzvi Zecher Tzadik Kadosh Libracha, he was the Shadchan, the person who introduced Andy and me in Argentina. Okay, because I went with the Rosh Yeshiva to Argentina. Anyways, he had one sponsor. His name was Ben-Sion Duner. Ben-Sion Duner was a young billionaire in London. He made a fortune in commodities, in mining, and then converted very, very early on in real estate. Just to give you an example, just so that you understand who he used to give £5 million to Rav Natan Tzvi every year, the Mir Yeshiva. Okay. So you understand who the person is, okay? Rav Natan Tzvi gets to London to raise money, okay? Who goes to pick him up from the airport? Ben-Sion Duner. He's in the car, and they're on their way back to the city, and the Rosh Yeshiva has to start going around, right? He takes out a check for £1 million, and he says, "Look, at least you know that you have money. You don't have to go around. You know that your trip was not worth it. Now you can go and raise benachat without the pressure."
Stress.
This is the sensitivity of the boy. Okay. He passed away dramatically. Purim, I think Purim, maybe 9 years ago. Purim. He had a house outside of London, like a ranch house, beautiful big house, and he had his townhouse in Edgware or whatever in London. Every Purim, he would receive aniyim and everyone would get £100 cash, £100, £100. Whoever comes in for cash, £100. At the end of Purim, when he's supposed to leave to go eat the Seudah with his family in the ranch, he just had bought a brand new Phantom, Rolls-Royce Phantom. Okay? He was pouring grain. Him and all his family going to the car. Okay? And the Anim that had all received money, all of them received money, were still outside of the house. He said bye-bye to everyone and he left. He had a car accident, everybody died.
Okay, car accident.
Car accident. He never made it. Everybody passed away. On the Shloshim, the family asked me to speak. So I said, in the mirror, I spoke in the mirror, I said, Rabotai, I said, all those people, brand new car. The car didn't have 1 week. Okay? I said, when all those people were outside the house, after receiving that money, and saw this guy, Ben Sion, go inside the car, brand new Rolls Royce, okay, going on his way to his mansion to have Seudah with his family. Do you think that those people didn't think, I wish I was in that car? Everybody said, I wish it was me. But if you tell everyone what happens at the end, that 15 minutes later there was a crash, everybody died, and you ask them again, would you have want to be in that car? Everybody would say, no, absolutely not. This is just to understand, we're a Kodesh Kodashim, and I don't have an answer for the why, and I'm not going into that. But what I'm saying is that here you have situations where even if you want to enjoy, you can't. Yeah? Yeah, brand new car, zero, nothing.
I have a question. What are we supposed to think in light of that story and other thoughts, that when Rabbanim quote something that we're supposed to hold on to, because, and I don't know the source of it exactly, must be Gemara, Tzedakah tatzil memavet.
Okay.
You just told me he gave £5 million, £1 million, and £100 to everybody that asked for it.
Yeah.
How come Tzedakah didn't save him from Mavet?
There's no answer to that. You have questions that have no answers. I don't have an answer. Maybe it was a kapara for the whole community. Maybe something was going to happen. We don't know.
Okay, but those sayings, are we supposed to hold on to them in life?
Absolutely. But nothing is bulletproof. These are general messages that Chachamim give us. Nothing is 100% bulletproof.
Of course, because they're Chachamim, they're not Hashem.
Exactly. So if we're going back to what Shlomo is telling us, he's saying, and by the way, just to finish with Ben Zion, he was the coolest, the happiest, the most amazing person. Meaning, this boy left the world in his 30s. He was in his 30s, okay? A king, okay? Shlomo comes and tells us, Shlomo HaMelech comes and tells us, do not think that just because you put the effort, you're going to be able to see the reward. Even if you actually finished and got to where you wanted to get, it's not for sure that you will be able to enjoy that. And if you take into account this last lesson, the lesson of what happens after that, even if you had it, even if you enjoyed it, who's going to get it after that? There is no room for such a life to live under the sun. There's no room for a reactional, an emotional, a foolish life. So all that we are left with at the end of the second chapter is to want to thrive through the Chokhmah, through the Torah, through the Simcha, to break through the world that is above the sun. And that's, these are seems to be like words, yeah. But if you take layer, you will find that there is there's a striking message at every level. Maybe we're going too fast. I don't know, but this is at this point, we should be filled with hate. We should be filled with disappointment, aggravation, frustration for the way we live our life. And the hate shouldn't be about life. It should be about how foolish we are. I'm talking about myself. But on the other end, with the awakening of this lion that's in us, that's this need to wanna be able to do the right things and build for the future, because that's what everybody really wants.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Rav,
So we finished.
question for you.
Yeah.
How old is your son that you gave that beautiful chess musar to?
Just the bar mitzvah one.
Oh, the bar mitzvah one. Wow. Okay, it's a very mature thought.
Yeah. I want to tell you something. Andy and myself, I think many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, we were discussing what can you give your son? What can you give your son? So the present I gave to my son is a book with all the lessons I've learned in my life.
You wrote them?
Yeah.
Can I get a copy?
Yeah.
And Andy, since I know him, every time we learn Torah, every time there's a question answer, he would take a note. So I asked him before the bar mitzvah, send me all the notes that you have from what.
Wow, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Azaka Baruch.
So, beruchim to you. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, we should continue. Bebracha or besimcha. Thank you for jumping in.
Thank you.
Hopefully,
Rob, we need one class. You said we're going to have one class dedicated on Shlomo and his relationship with his son. We need one full class on that.
With Rehovam.
Yeah. I need one. I need to dive into that one.
Okay.
Last question before we go. How old was Shlomo when he wrote Kohelet?
I would think the end of his life.
No. 1 second. I know that Mishle he wrote he was 40. Kohelet he wrote. It's a good question. I don't want to say something inaccurate.
But next time, you'll tell us on Tuesday.
He was young. He was very young when he wrote Kohelet.
Tell us on Tuesday, because I have a follow-up to that question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rav.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andy,
Thank you all.
Nice to meet you, Andy.
Nice to meet you, Andy.
Thank you very much. You too. All the best.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Bye-bye.